Good evening. I haven't even said anything yet. Good start. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We are excited for you to be a participant in affecting change. My name is Lizzie Payton. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Community Sustainability for Big Sky SNO. SNO stands for Sustainability Network Organization. The key word in there is network, because although SNO may be spearheading many of the local initiatives to slow the changing climate, it will take a collaborative and collective network of action and partnerships to accomplish what we've recently set forth in our climate action plan. If you hear me say CAP tonight, it's because we often reference the climate action plan as a CAP. So yes, this is a snow cap. Lori so kindly let me know that that was kind of punny. Big Sky is defined by its sense of place amongst mountains, forests, wildlife, and streams. Most of us were drawn here by these outdoor assets and quality of life. We have chosen to live here because of it. It is a place where we can connect with the outdoors at just a moment's notice. We love it here because of the great outdoors, the access, the experience, the immersion, and the lifestyle. Big Sky is a very small slice of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, one of the most unique and brittle ecosystems in the world. We have a responsibility to protect the land on which our community resides. So, how often do we go into an unknown part of the backcountry? A lot, right? The CAP provides a bit of a trail map in an unknown future together with some structure of a plan. As you can see behind me, we laid out a bit of a trail map in our CAP that is kind of 13 different strategies to get to net zero by 2050. Whether we're skiing down the hill, floating on the river, or tossing your backpack on to go on a hike, maps are a key navigational tool. We present this plan as a trail map because it's somewhat of a universal language here in Big Sky. As with many long-haul adventures, the final route taken is not always the initial route planned. Many of you have probably been on events like this. Unexpected setbacks and helpful nudges forward will undoubtedly be a part of this journey. We believe that this is how some of the best destinations are reached. Similar to many adventures, the first steps require some patience. They may not be the most rewarding, but the view at the end, in this case, our apex of net zero emissions by 2050, will be well worth the hard work it will take to get there. Realizing this goal will require the work of individuals and businesses, community investment, and advantageous climate legislation. This evening is meant to inspire you to be a part of this collective effort. We have a special guest speaker, a few short films, and a brilliant panel moderated by our own Joe O'Connor from Mountain Journal. So please join me in welcoming Conrad Anker, someone who knows our local playgrounds better than the rest of us.
Yeah, how's everyone going? Can you hear me okay? I don't have a super booming voice, and I don't have a clicker, so this is our, we're going low tech, and I'm just waiting for the visual of our volunteers, so we got it on there. So yeah, there, once we'll get it going, there's a light there, so that's for the camera that's in the audience there. There we go. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming out this evening. Thanks, Yarrow, for the invitation, Taylor, for being able to come back and visit, and Lizzie for your organization on this, and all of you for coming in and attending this evening. So this is where we live. You can see Big Sky on that map. It's kind of tiny enough, but this is the type of information that we all have on our mobile devices right now. So we'll kind of go into this discussion that our planet is not that big and it's not that durable. We're kind of understanding how fragile it is at this point. So that'll be kind of our conversation. A big shout out and thank you to my wife, Jenny, and our 3 boys. Always start the slideshow with that. And there we are, looking like your typical Montana family. Beards and flannel, even with Jenny. So, but this is how I got started. This is Marge and Joe, and I'm from Central California, Tuolumne County, and our Marge's side of the family came there in 1853 to be provisioners to the gold miners, and then Joe came down from Ukiah. That's where my last name comes from, and they were shipwrights from Denmark. And Joe worked for Hetch Hetchy Water and Power, and his idea of a good day was to drive into the park, which is only an hour drive from where our house is, with his pen protector, and he'd like drive around and find the other construction crews. And Marge would be like, Joe, we came to go look at the waterfalls, not to talk to the other construction guys. But my dad started doing this at a young age, and so my mother was from East Germany, brought her over, and the picture has the top of my head there, but it's a little bit cropped off. But his idea was to go out in the backcountry and spend 2 weeks there every summer and build character for the kids. My mother, you can tell by her look, is like, I don't want to get bitten by mosquitoes. So this is how we started out, with donkeys and and going out there. Later hosen, of course, they were like really good and durable. You could slide on snow. But you notice next picture, I'm the sullen teenager. No more later hosen. I'm like, Dad, I'm not wearing them. It was waffle stompers, blue jeans, and flannel. And so this is our family there. You can tell I'm in the red shirt there that I got that know-it-all sullen teenager look. Like, I'm sure my parents were like, go get a job and you see how it works out. But all the basis of what I do in the mountains was brought to me at a young age by my parents, the people that were mentoring me and giving me a chance to be outdoors. And for that, I'm always thankful. I was a hyperactive kid. I played team sports, but someone always loses in team sports. Had a great scoutmaster that built community and that trust and connection that is really the essence of what climbing is. So I went from being a kid to mountain climbing, and that's what I do. This is sitting on the summit of Mount Everest, and then on to the type of climbing that really is my most fascinating, or granite 7,000 meter peaks. So 7,000 meters and below in the Himalayas. So this type of climbing, and this is Meru, a peak in the Garhwal, India, and it was tried in 2003, no success. 2008, no success. 2011 had success. But the beauty of this is that when I first went to the Himalayas, I was in 1988. I was like, oh, this is all about me. I'm going to go over there and do this great first ascent and come back and tell all these stories about what I did there. But it wasn't the mountains, and it wasn't about me. It was about the people I met. This is Jimmy Chin, my regular climbing partner, and Renan, the fellow that I was up on the mountain with. And we were in climbing this, we interact with people that are not the way we are. So when I came back from the Himalayas, the first time I was like, oh, I'm going to be writing up this great ascent. I'm going to make hay, be a pro climber. And I came back and I'm like, these people live in the mountains. They have no need to go climb the mountains. They either revere the mountains, they're a deity to them, or they're feared of them, or a combination of the both of them. And so that was it was a shift in how we look at mountains, and how we look at mountains in the United States with our appreciation, our heritage of it, and our land conservation, a lot of that rooted in Native American practices, how the Europeans, how mountains are viewed in Asia, and how in the Himalayas and things like that. But this one climb, the Meru climb, was my life's work. And with Jimmy and Renan and I on the summit. And it was, we had this epiphany on this trip that all of us had, one or both of our parents were immigrants. And we had this like, did you have to wake up and like have the thumb on you to like, if you don't work hard, you're not going to get going on anything. So that was always, we had that commonality. But in the Garhwal, it's a sacred place for the Hindu religion. Just over their crest is Mount Kailas for the Buddhist religion. But this is the holy ones. They hang out up there. They live off the benevolence and goodwill of other people. And they're all in a different way. And so this is at Tapovan. It's the base of Shibling. We'll go this next one. And so this chap here, he hangs out in his loincloth. He lives in underneath this boulder. And he was silent for, I think, 5 years. We didn't talk. And then he did that. He was the silent Baba. And now he just loved to talk. And he was like anyone that would walk in there and would like want to hang out and be part of it. And this is kind of interesting because here we are. This gentleman, along with another 10 people, they've renounced all material things in the world. They're devout Hindus. They live off of the benevolence of other people. And yet in this next clip, this gentleman here, the silent Baba, we're going to...
Is the glacier getting smaller? The glacier. Is it getting...
It's melting, right?
Melting, just melting. Very company, very this train, van going, coming, and all world, very company, understand? Factory. After this, all air fire, very making all area after this difference.
The air fire.
Air
fire.
Very air fire.
Well, I might be saying, I was leading the questions from a journalist type standpoint, but what air fire is CO2, and he recognizes that. And this gentleman hangs out in the mountains and lives in a cave and lives off of powdered milk and nuts that people bring him, but fully aware of what climate change is. And so we know CO2 is what air fire is, and that is our biggest challenge. And so this is the Taku Glacier. This advertisement was printed in 1962, and I don't think we have a humble oil company anymore. It's been bought, but even just the irony of the name, the humble oil company, and they melt 7 million tons of glacier, which is accurate. I mean, yeah, we're doing this for many years now, and this is the Taku Glacier. They've gone back, and it's receded quite a different way. And so a big part of this is how we message climate and how it's going on. And so this is the Clean Coal web page, a screenshot from that. And the coalition, hard coal facts, from coal mine to golf course. It's a little bit of a difference because we're now seeing, in this instance here, this is 2014, where they won't teach man-made. This is our neighboring state, and so we're now seeing education being challenged by people that might not agree with it, that want to see it in a different way. But science, we can't really have opinions. Gravity is gravity. Climate change is climate change. We have to accept them and work with them. And that is the biggest challenge we face in the next 200 years. How do we go from a very carbon-intensive economy, society, to a renewable society and kind of stabilize population? For all of us in this room, we're going to live out the next 40, 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 2 days, not 5 minutes because no one's dying right now. We'll have plenty of carbon, but what's it going to be like 7 generations from now, 200 people down there? And this cartoon by Joel Pett, he's a wonderful cartoonist. It's a great big hoax, but you get all these other things. And the top of it's kind of cropped off there. But I mean, we look at that, it's like, oh, this is what we're going to get if we decarbonize them with that. That's idealistic. Anything that we approach in this day and age is going to take a tremendous amount of compromise, work, and sacrifice from any different party that's involved with it. We want electric vehicles, that means more cobalt. Cobalt is mined in indigenous lands. How do we address that? How do we address windmills? People don't want windmills, NIMBYism in their backyard. It affects their view, it affects fishing. How do we put up solar farms without affecting the desert tortoise? So there's all these trade-offs that are within that. And the way we work through trade-offs is the way we work through conflict at home. You sit down, you have a conversation, you agree on not letting things get overheated and try to focus on the facts of what you got going in there. So I'm going to run 3 pictures here. This is National Geographic Society, 1963, when they went to the summit. And so this is Rick Ridgway. He was 10 years old when he saw the Everest cover, and then he said, I'm going to be a mountain climber. And I remember when I was a kid, in May of 79, they did the first climb of K2, and this is Rick Ridgway. And I was like, this is what I'm going to go do. And so next picture, we finally go to we go to Queen Maud Land. I'm there with Rick. He's part of our trip. And if you can back it up one slide, Rick had this like heat reflector thing on his face, and we're like, I was like, man, when I was a kid, I'm not going to be climbing until I get a heat reflector on my face. And so it was like, we show up, I'm there with Alex Lowe, we're in Antarctica, and we're like, Rick, we got our face masks. So we cut them out of turkey basting pans. And Rick just doubles over in humor. He's like, we wore those for like 5 minutes. They're the most ridiculous, most worthless things. They didn't do anything. You're better off using sunblock and a baseball hat. You don't need that. It was just what they used on the cover. So that was the humor. 3 different ways that we can look at climate change from a mountain standpoint. Historical repeat photography. This is the ocean of ice coming out of the Chamonix area in Mont Blanc. This is where it was when the train station was first put in, and this is where it is now. So that bathtub line, if you do go to Chamonix and you hike down, you can see annual marks of where the glacier was and at what level it is. And it's continually, these glaciers are looking very anemic in the course of them. This is Mount Everest. This is a photograph by Norman Dienforth from 1963. And then we went to the same location and took the same photograph. And you'll see here, just on this crown of rock, how much that ice is receded there, and then how much of the glacier itself is deflated and how much smaller it looks. And so people think glaciers shrink and they get shorter, but they're a 3-dimensional volume, and so they shrink like a balloon, and so that volume is quite noticeable. Another way of looking at them is time-lapse photography. This is with Jim Baylog in the Extreme Ice Survey. I can click the forward button, please, and that is, it looks like it's building there. But this isn't a day, this is an annual. You can see where the ice is moving on there, and so it, in a sense, I sit and I watch these time and time again. I'll find one place, it's going in reverse, goes in there again. But these are ways in which we can study glaciers. Now, this is a detail. When we had these cameras set up, and then another glaciologist came, put cameras up on the Nagsumpa Glacier without permission, and then the Department of Forestry canceled all time-lapse cameras. That might need a click to go through. Here we go. So a closer detail of this. And this is probably, it's 2 kilometers in length and a 700-meter drop on it. And people climb in there. It's absolutely astonishingly crazy and dangerous. So this is the most dangerous part of the mountain. It's not where the Westies die, it's where the Nepalis die. The Westies die on the summit. People go, I gotta make it up there. They expire. The Sherpa and the Nepalis die because they'll do multiple trips in there, and there's catastrophes that occur in that. We can click, this one is the same one again, sorry, the slide's in there duplicate.
What period of time, Conrad?
This was from 2010 to, this was a 2-year window that we did this. And so we had to manually pull them out. And so we're hoping to get the cameras back up in there now to have, to use this information for the safety of the Nepalis that climb in the ice fall. So the government changed, the people that we'd had our permit from, they'd moved on. So that was, we'd like to get it back and have a webcam that would then, you can click on it and you can see what's going on in the fall. Yeah, well, there we go. This is another area of looking at ISIS with satellite imagery and by looking at it. And so if we click this one, this is up till 2015, so the information is dated already, but if you click the forward button, yes, please. It's kind of neat with the graph and the illustration of the ice. So just up here in this above the 2,000 where that dip is, and at the top of Greenland and that other island, that's probably going to be like where the last of the Arctic sea ice ends up, because it packs in there by the currents. And so that is something that we're on there. Another, this is a 4-year time lapse has continued on. Jim's not doing time lapse work anymore due to his health. They did a great job getting this established, working on this, taking this. And this is, it's art in the sense that we look at it and we're watching things move, but it's also there's quite a bit of data in here. So you can see how the pack ice is going up and down according to tides. Where's the bedrock under there? Medial, lateral moraines being put in there. And so it retreats so rapidly, they then have to like tilt the camera. And this is already 12 years old. So it's even further back. The Columbia Glacier is one of the most active in the sort of, this is what's happening to climate, is it's being manifested in this. Again, they keep moving it back and back. And so it's now past that glacier to the left that comes in, it's further back in there. So we always want to talk about good news. That was our conversation. We get so much bad news over the course of it. You can click the photo, please. So I work with Protect Our Winters, and it's a climate advocacy group that Jeremy Jones founded. And it is primarily to engage youth, not the people in this audience. We're all experienced. We all love life. But the kids, get them out there, give them the tools, the permission, the responsibility, and the know-how to talk about climate. And that is, again, this messaging thing. And so much of what we perceive is based on messaging. And if we can activate the youth to be like, hey, we like to ski, but there's something more that goes on than simply skiing. There's a healthier, better planet. So a few of the ways, the renewable energy economy, solar and wind are now cheaper than coal. We have a huge opportunity with coal strip to reimagine that, the strip mining, to put solar. There's electric infrastructure set there. So looking at those areas there, I mean, we're challenged with the coal plants that are there. Next, please. The carbon tax. We like to talk about it, but in reality, it's not going to happen. So we do it individually. If you are a person and you buy carbon offsets at the end of the year for your air travel, or your company that works with buys offsets on every single flight, you're putting a price on carbon. Where that money goes and how it's allocated is still in the working thing there, but afforestation, ways in which that we can help offset that. But until we get to a carbon credit card where you're X amount of carbon that you're allowed to use, we're going to have a challenge. And all of us in this room, just by the dint of living in Montana in a cold climate and enjoying the sports we do, we're carbon gluttons. We use a lot of carbon. And so how do we address our own individual use with that? Transit. There's going to be a train that goes from Las Vegas to Los Angeles coming online. There's now one that goes across from Florida from east to west, I think it is. And so these people movers they're coming in, and they're being funded by private business here in the United States. It's not a national. Amtrak's there, but the LA outfit, that's private equity that came in there and saw a market in that. And so there's, as we become better with transit, protecting our public lands. So much of the coal that we were talking about earlier, especially in the state of Montana with huge amount of reserves, we're best off leaving that in the ground. Let's use natural gas and then petroleum, and then last off is coal, just due to the burden that coal has with us, with the amount of pollution that goes into it. So public lands, especially here in the West, we have a tremendous responsibility with stewardship. So with that, that's sort of our introduction, some background on how I got into it, and then we'll Joe's here with the panel. But before we do that, we have a 2-minute film titled Purple Mountains, and this is Jeremy Jones got together with a snowboarder, and they came from 2 different ideological views. And so how do you get someone that doesn't see the things the way you do, but you try to get them to understand they're in the same way. So we'll run the film, please.
What were you doing when you were boring holes underground?
Yeah, so in New York, they were fixing the old aqueduct that supplied 500 million gallons a day to New York City. So we'd go down the bottom of the shaft, get on a locomotive, go into the tunnel boring machine, and then you'd just be sitting there mining and building rings all shift. It's almost like going into space. It was either I do that and like focus on a career, or I come out and just focus more on life and living. Every time I go out, you find more and more lines. I mean, there's a lifetime of lines out here. I'm stoked to hit me up. Yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, man, there's thousands of riders like me. I don't know why he's calling me.
You're the only local split boarder I know in this area. You know, America is so divided, and we're allowed to have different views. We're allowed to debate things. We're allowed to, but right now that's just not happening.
There's hardly any unbiased views out there that'll present both areas. It sucks that people buy into that and not try to find like common ground. I think it's tough around here because the climate talk gets lumped into a bunch of other policies. I don't think you're gonna find much people that are against saving the climate, being more environmentally conscious. It's just a lot of times that comes with a lot of other stuff that affects their business and their livelihood.
I'll get past everything. If you're serious about climate, you can get elected. I'm all in.
I think what's the big thing is the solutions for it, you know?
Yeah.
That's where people get hung up, I think, and it's easier to blame, like, there's no problem.
Debating solutions is a great debate.
Right.
We need 100% of the people figuring out solutions.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know, I like to think about it like climbing a mountain. Like, I'm not saying we have the summit ridge. We have our Hillary step to equate it to Everest figured out. But we know which way the summit is.
Yeah.
Let's start just going one step at a time. Classic, really.
What dreams are made of. Dropping, baby. Hell yeah.
Keep it going.
Yeah, Jerry. Woo! Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
That was good, man. That's perfect snow.
That was a great short film. Thank you guys for showing that. Yeah, there we go. I'm Joe O'Connor. I'm managing editor for the nonprofit journalism site Mountain Journal. We cover the wildlands and wildlife in Greater Yellowstone, and you can read our work, little plug here, at mountainjournal.org. Really appreciate you guys coming tonight. So at the beginning of the evening, Lizzie Payton mentioned responsibility. We are living in a time of consequence and a time of necessary action. Everyone in this room has witnessed the impacts of our climate changing, and we've seen the effects worldwide. This is not a big sky problem per se, but it is not a big sky problem. Perhaps we can be a model for other ski towns. Perhaps we can be a model for the world. I want to thank Big Sky SNO and Lizzie Payton for bringing Mountain Journal into tonight's conversation, and for their work to put together Big Sky's first community climate action plan. If nothing else, this is a jumping off point, a recognition that we see a climate shifting, and it demands action right now from all of us. Tonight, we're going to hear from 4 experts in their respective fields who are studying these changes and are working to implement solutions. So allow me to introduce our panel for the evening. Oh, you know this first guy. He's changed the face of mountaineering internationally. He's helped change the way we think about recreation in the face of a warming climate. He's changed the face of the North Face. Conrad Anker, where'd you go? Oh, there you go. Thanks for coming. Kathy Whitlock is a Regents Professor of Earth Sciences at Montana State University. She's a member of the esteemed National Academy of Sciences, and she was lead author for Montana's Climate Assessment and the Greater Yellowstone Climate Assessment, upon which Big Sky SNO, in part, built its Big Sky Climate Action Plan. So, Kathy Whitlock. Taylor Middleton is Big Sky Resorts president and COO, and is now in his 42nd winter in Big Sky. He started at the resort working as a hotel desk clerk. He operated a bulldozer for a time and helped launch the resort's snowmaking system. In short, he's seen it all in Big Sky. He's now helping lead an effort to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2030. Taylor Middleton. So this morning at 6:30, I got a call, and things, as they inevitably do in these situations, changed. Lil Erickson, Executive Director for Western Sustainability Exchange, is unfortunately unable to join us tonight, but instead, we are lucky to have WSE board member Malou Anderson Ramirez. Malou grew up on her family's ranch in the Tom Miner Basin on the other side of the Gallatin Range here, just north of Yellowstone National Park. She's co-founder of Tom Miner Basin Association, whose work centers on conflict reduction and coexistence measures for ranchers who share lands with large carnivores. She and her family practice and implement regenerative, I hope I don't have to say that too many times tonight, agriculture techniques over multiple ranches throughout the state. Malou Anderson Ramirez. We have a crew up here. This is quite a panel. I'm honored to be here with you guys. So thank you for joining us. So welcome everybody. Sustainability, and you can do the air quote things if you want. Sustainability is one of those nebulous words that can be hard to pin down and can mean different things to different people. I want to start with a question tonight for each of you. And we'll give you guys about a minute because we're going to plow through this time. So here it is. So since this panel is about sustainability, what are we sustaining and what are we not sustaining? Why don't we start with you, Conrad, and we'll come back this way.
We need to sustain air, oxygen. Without 2 minutes of it, things happen. 4 minutes, we're dead. So air, CO2, let's start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just start by saying that this climate action plan is really, really good, and the community should be really proud of this action plan because most action plans deal with adaptation to climate change, but this one tackles the harder issue of mitigation and reducing greenhouse gases. So that is the first step to being sustainable. And when I think of sustainability, I always think of our Constitution and our right to a clean and healthful environment. Montana is one of the few states that guarantees us that right. And that's what we should be focusing on to be sustainable, is how are we going to keep our environments in good enough shape that they're clean and they're functioning and they're healthful, not only for us, but for the next generations.
So I'm going to bring it to the here and now. We're here trying to sustain SNO. Kathy and a lot of her colleagues produced a report that says we're going to have 6 to 25 fewer days of skiing in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem in not too many decades from now. So that's where the rubber meets the road. Why is that happening? Climate's getting warmer.
Well, I'll just go simple like Conrad. In my world, it's large landscapes, it's clean water, it's air, and trying not to impose and impede in the future needs while we try to maintain our needs.
Well, thank you guys. I think that's, it's an interesting question because everyone interprets it differently. And Malou actually asked me that earlier, threw my question back at me, and it was not an easy one to answer. So I appreciate that. So Taylor, you operate what turns out to be a ski resort, Big Sky Resort. Obviously depends on snowfall for the winter. What changes in climate have you witnessed in Big Sky and at the resort?
Well, I'm sure a lot of you in this room, or maybe a few of you in this room, were here in the 80s, and it was a lot colder in the 80s, right? You felt it. And although we've had cold weather this winter, we've had 30, 40 below days and nights. In the 80s, we used to have 30 and 40 below weeks, right? That's one of the things that's happening. That kind of helps our resort business model for now, but the long term, that's not sustainable, right? That's one of the ways, very specifically, that I've seen things change.
Mm-hmm. Probably sell fewer face masks these days.
We do sell fewer face masks these days. Yeah.
So Big Sky Resort's plan, called the Forever Project. So for the resort, it's to be carbon neutral in 7 years, and indicates that you see impacts of a shifting climate. So what was the impetus behind this plan being formed now? And what is the Forever Project? How does it complement SNO's climate action plan?
Yeah, it's a big bundle of question there.
Yeah.
So first of all, getting to net zero carbon emissions by 2030, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Can we get there? I don't know. Are we going to work really, really hard to get there? Yes, we are. It's complicated and it's expensive. How did we set off on this path? Our owner, Stephen Kircher, established this goal, not just for Big Sky Resort, but for all of the Boyne resorts. We have about 10 ski resorts on the 45th parallel across North America. And we know that we are part of the problem in creating greenhouse gases, and that we need to be part of the solution. And the Forever Project is, there are many goals. The most tangible goal that's the most measurable is getting to net zero carbon emissions by 2030. But as all of us know, this is a big problem, and it's bigger than one ski resort. It's bigger than 10 ski resorts. It's bigger than 200 guests that are here in this room. We all are on the forefront of sustainability, and we need to set an example and make it contagious So every ski resort in America, every business in America, every governmental official in America starts understanding that this is real. And how is Big Sky Resort going to make a difference? We're going to show people it's possible. We're going to show people it's fun. And we're going to set an example, and hopefully a lot of other people will want to join us, just like the whole bunch of people that started the sustainability action that did it before us. We decided to join them. Let's make this contagious, Joe.
So just quickly, can you talk about a couple specifics in terms of how you get there? Because the similarities I see, they are these big, hairy, audacious goals, and that's okay. I think it's good to be ambitious. I see that both the SNO Climate Action Plan and Big Sky Resorts Forever Project are both ambitious goals. And what are just a couple specific things that you guys are going to do to reach that goal?
Yeah. So we just completed a master plan where we hired an outside expert consulting company to audit, not just Big Sky, but all the Boyne resorts. Mm-hmm. Where is our carbon? And about 50% of our carbon production is electricity. So let's just focus on that. In Montana, Northwestern Energy, 67% of Northwestern's energy that we all burn, it's already green because we've got a lot of hydro and wind. But 35, 40% is dirty because of coal and coal strip and natural gas that we burn. That's one thing that we are doing in Big Sky. We're putting solar up so we can generate a little bit ourselves. We're really working hard with Northwestern Energy and other energy source providers to make our energy that we buy cleaner. And then we're offsetting the entirety of Boyne Resort. When we finished even before we finished our audit, we knew that our biggest carbon load was electricity. So we went into the market and purchased renewable energy credits, and like you were talking about, to offset 100% of our electrical carbon load across all of Boyne. We did that for all of 21 and all of 22, and we're going to keep doing that. But as Kathy points out, offsetting is just an interim solution. Yeah. We need to quit offsetting and start not polluting carbon into the atmosphere. And that's a big piece of the tool that we're focusing on by 2030.
Right on. Well, that is an ambitious goal, and I think it's a great place, for you guys to be going. Kathy, Taylor was talking about, planning, right? Planning ahead and understanding our human impacts on the world. Big Sky Resort aims to reach net zero climate emissions by 2030. SNO wants Big Sky to be there by 2050. In 1971, Chet Huntley, the famed NBC broadcaster, founding father of Big Sky Resort, called Big Sky the greatest thing that ever happened to Montana. He quote, "They, the tourists, come and spend their money, leave a few tracks in the snow and go back home. What's so wrong with that? Big Sky will demonstrate that you can install a first-rate recreational development in a pristine area without any damage to the environment." So fast forward 50 years, the Montana DEQ in 2022 made a preliminary finding to list the Gallatin River as impaired under the Clean Water Act. The population in Gallatin County has doubled since 1990, and Big Sky's population here has nearly doubled since 2010. According to SNO's Big Sky Community Climate Action Plan, Yellowstone National Park visitation increased by 85% from 1970 to 2015. And skier days have increased significantly across the region. So, Kathy, my question is, what is your take on the correlation between a warming climate and the impact that increasing numbers of people have on the landscape?
Well, I think we all know what's going on, right? People are moving here because they want to take advantage of the amenities, and where they live is becoming impossible. It's too hot in the summer. It's, floods in the winter. So we're going to see these climate refugees, I guess. I'm not sure I like that term, but it's people who don't like where they're living now and can get away with living in a better place. And Montana's not immune to climate change. Big Sky's not. So again, they're kicking the can down the road a little bit by moving here. What worries me, and probably worries all of you, is these growing numbers of people, as increase in population and increase in usage, is having a huge impact on the environment. And the environment's already under stress from climate change. Anytime the climate has changed in the past, the ecosystem changes as well. The ecosystem has to change so that animals can stay in equilibrium with the climate that they can survive in. And that's what we're seeing now. You may not recognize it, but you do recognize it. White bark pine is dying, grizzly bears are on the move. All of these parts of our ecosystem are under stress. And when we put more people in those places, in those remote places, we're having a huge impact on the ability of that ecosystem to respond to climate change.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that answer. Just a quick follow-up there. You mentioned animals. So what does resilience to climate change mean within the context of wildlife in Big Sky?
Well, there's parts of our ecosystem that we really, really value, our wolves and our grizzly bears, but also our migratory birds and our amphibians, and all of those need the space to be able to respond to climate change. We need the connectivity across the landscape so that these big carnivores can move. We need to be mindful of when we mess up wetlands, what sorts of habitats are going to be available for our frogs and our toads. So it has a direct impact on all aspects of the ecosystem. And we're quite likely going to lose white bark pine, I think. We can plant it, that's blister rust resistant and that kind of thing, and everybody's really upbeat about that. But I mean, fundamentally, it's just not going to do well here in a warmer climate.
Yeah, I mean, people think Big Sky, Montana, Southwest Montana, Yellowstone National Park, you don't think of necessarily white bark pine and frogs and toads, but they're all part of this. And
yeah, they are.
I appreciate you bringing that up. Malou, so we live in Montana. You grew up on your family ranch up Tom Minor Basin. Lil Erickson, whom I interviewed last week in preparation of this, which totally went out the window, but not completely, spoke to me about language, and that some, ranchers and many other people prefer terms like climate change, or changing climate over climate change. How important is language and terminology when we're talking about this stuff?
It's extremely important, and it's amazing how divisive we can be without realizing it, and how language can make really anything political that shouldn't be political. So yeah, in the working groups I'm in with ranchers, it's really important to not talk about the target words, as they say, the trigger words. We don't even say sustainability in working lands groups. We don't talk about climate change. We certainly don't say global warming. We talk about drought resilience and how we can help each other keep growing the beef or the plants that we need to grow, how we can keep up with biodiversity, how we can look at a greater, larger natural system that's a successful thing, and then mimic and learn from that natural system instead of dominating. So it's all in the language in a lot of ways, especially with ranchers and farmers.
Mm-hmm. Got to meet people where they are. Is there a recognition of it? I mean, I know in at least, especially in the past, there's been a pushback against the fact that there's anything changing. Are agrarians recognizing changes on the landscape?
Mm-hmm. They are. That the beautiful trend of regeneration. I hate to say it, but we sort of moved beyond the sustainability word in agriculture, and now we're really talking about the regenerative word, because there's a whole nother layer there. And part of that is looking towards resilient ranch lands as something that is fundamental in the climate conversation. And so ranchers really need to be supported and empowered to be part of that cornerstone that helps something that they've been the demise and the villain of in a lot of ways. So it's really important.
What are ranchers seeing as a result of a warming planet?
Gosh, so many things. There's already so much variability in ranching and food systems. So when we talk about ranching, we can just say our food systems. And so already it's a scary variability with all kinds of things that we can never, we've always sort of blamed it on weather, blamed it on whatever it is. And now we really have to, look in the mirror. But definitely water is a huge one. Whether that's too much water or too little of water is really the center of it all. And then, of course, now we're seeing the soils. If we don't have our diversity in the soils, then we don't have the diversity in our food systems and our plant systems and our beef markets. And we're finally putting all of those puzzle pieces together and realizing that you can't talk about grizzly bears and amphibians without talking about, knapweed and whitebark pine. Every single thing is connected in this equation. So
That's such an important point I think you just made, is that everything is connected in an ecosystem, and to recognize one part of it and to not recognize another part is to not recognize the issue at all. Oh, thank you for that. Conrad, you were just in Antarctica. You've traveled and climbed all over the world. You and your wife, Jenny Lowanker, started the Khumbu Climbing Center in Tibet, and you frequently spend time in the Himalaya. What changes have you witnessed there over the years?
Yeah.
You spoke a little about it earlier.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I've been traveling the Himalayas since 1988, and I've repeated some of the treks that I've done. In the lower elevations, there's deforestation is present, so the land is tired. The land is like a mule that's been worked too hard and is not doing well. Higher up in the elevation, glacial recession is obvious. We have historical repeat photography. The change in the Antarctic climate is anecdotal on my end because I'm there for 2 or 3 weeks. I have a snapshot. Was it compared to last time? And we need a robust scientific understanding and a snow survey to be able to address that. But the immediate in Nepal and the Himalayan countries is that there is no debate about climate change. They're like, it's real. They are a consequence nation. Again, not using the victim word with that. The consequences of our carbon intake they're going to be paying for that. So you have places like Bhutan where they're working on reducing the water behind these lateral medial moraines that then burst and have a glacial lake outburst flood. And so they're doing like just siphoning it out of there. They're putting people to work doing that. So all the nations in the Himalaya, they're very aware of what climate is. And the fact that this mountain range begins at 27 degrees north latitude and goes up to about 35 degrees north latitude where K2 is, it's very close to the equator in very high elevation. So, but the positive news about the Himalayas is that you have these massive ravines and gorges and mountains, and within that you have these 2,000 meter, 3,000 meter, 7 to 9,000 foot mountain slopes. And on those mountain slopes, you can go from rhododendron to fir and pine trees, deciduous trees in between, and then all the wildlife that is associated with that. And so as you go up in elevation and change aspect according to the sun, there is a little bit of an escape hatch for plant life, animal life to adapt to it. Whereas if you might say, for instance, in Kansas, you're going to have a very uniform climate. So without that temperature difference that we see in there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Speaking of, elevation in this area, I mean, you've lived in Bozeman for more than 20 years. What do you find special about this place? And then what most concerns you about the impacts of a changing climate in Southwest Montana?
Yeah, the accessibility of public lands is, I grew up in the West with public lands. It was like my dad, my grandfather worked on them. I worked on them. We went to go play there. We went and hunted. I went climbing. It was like, and that wasn't until I went to the East Coast and I couldn't like camp like off the side of the road. like when you're a kid, you're like, I'm driving to Yosemite, you'd find a place to camp, or you go to Indian Creek and you just like camp anywhere. And it's like, you can't do that. And it's really not in Europe. So we have this, we take it for granted, and we were very fortunate to have it within here. So the travel management plan that took place in Highlight Canyon 15 years ago was a step in the right direction. Forest Service recognizing how winter recreation is changing. It was contentious. Some people didn't want to lose anything. But at the end of the day, when I go out ice climbing and rock climbing, and I see other people there, I'm happy for them. I'm not like, oh, this is overcrowding and get out of here. And I'm going to be a gatekeeper with that, because fundamentally, the manner in which people communicate with other people in participatory outdoor adventure is supportive and uplifting. So like if you and I were to play tennis, my goal would beat Joe.
You wouldn't beat me in tennis.
There we go. Joe would beat me.
Actually, you'd kill me.
Going into this, I don't know. One of us would be the loser at the end of the day. And
it's a competition.
It's a competition. And we create space, time, rules, judges, and all that crap. You go out in the mountains, it's like, wow, there's a nuthatch, or there's, I saw a coyote, or listened to a coyote, or something like that. And there's that connection to what sustains us, which is this planet that being outdoors gives to us. So there's the benefit of becoming a better human to your other humans, and it's also understanding what sustains our planet. And if you then understand that, you hopefully become a better advocate for a healthier planet.
And the second part of that, what concerns you about the impacts in this area, in your home in Bozeman and Highlight Canyon?
Probably the not being mindful of other people and their recreation. So that just because you're out there doesn't mean that you're going to have it your whole way and what you want to do with it like that, and that your impact, acoustical as much as anything, impacts other people. And so there's to be mindful and to be respectful of other people's space out there. But it's challenging when you have motorized, non-motorized, you have sort of localized impact, you have non-localized impact. So there's going forward, any way we try to work through climate and the challenges we're facing is going to be a lot of work. There's not an easy solution. We want more batteries. That means more cobalt, which means being mined from indigenous lands and people that have been not on the fair end of the material end of things. We have windmills. People don't want them in their backyard. They don't want to see them. Everything has a little bit of a compromise. But if we work together, then that's where the optimism comes in.
Yeah, no, thanks for that answer. Taylor, back to you. I know Big Sky Resort's been working on a lot of employee housing. From what I understand, currently has about 700 of its 1,800 employees living in resort-owned housing in Big Sky. How is the resort handling carbon impacts of the employees that commute from Gallatin Valley in terms of this longer-term plan that you have?
This is such a good question because it's blending a lot of community challenges into one big pot, right? Affordable housing, where do people stay? Where do they live? Is it nice? How do employers have employees? Big Sky Resort and the Boyne family committed years and years ago that we wanted to have our employees living in the community as much as possible. Coincidentally, having over 700 employees beds in housing that we own here in Big Sky, well, it keeps those workers from being on the road. I was in a traffic jam coming down tonight. Number
That's
one,
a tough one.
it isn't spewing carbon up into the atmosphere. It enlivens the community because the more people you put together, all types of people together, it's a more real, robust sort of place to live. And so we like having our workforce here in Big Sky. We're pumping capital in behind that. We've had 6 workforce housing projects go over the last 6 consecutive years. We've got one underway that will be opening in a few months. We've got another one on the books for this coming summer. It's better for the community. It's better for the employee. It's better for the employer. It's better for the atmosphere and the climate.
Mhm.
That's we're committed to doing it. And I have to add, every time we build a bed of workforce housing here in Big Sky, that's one entitlement that we cannot use to build a condominium.
Mm.
And that's a costly decision. But try operating a resort without an employee. That's a costlier decision, right?
Sure.
So these things cut both ways. It's complicated.
No, it absolutely is, and I appreciate the answer. Talking about commuting carbon footprints. So Malou, SNO was interested in WSE's work with carbon capture and carbon sequestration. Tell us a little bit about the Carbon Grasslands project that you guys are working on.
Sure. Lowell would have been much better at this, but I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Just high level the sequestration programs is really about, looking at the fact that we no longer have multi-millions of dollars or millions of bison around to put the carbon that's in the grasslands back in the soil. And it's really important to realize that carbon is put into the atmosphere not only with overgrazed lands but ungrazed lands as well, because all that dry grass just goes in there. So that would have never happened in times before. And so really it's about helping ranchers make better choices and again being that cornerstone to utilize cattle as a resource to do that. And so cattle are, as we all know, a cousin to a bison, and they can easily be reminded of some instinctual herding ways in which their hooves and their nutrient cycle can put that carbon back into the ground. And so the carbon, it's really, there's a lot of it, just like anything big that we don't know about. I said Obamacare earlier, where it's like, the idea is a good idea, but of course the first few runs is going to be rough. And so the carbon projects and the also ecosystem credit projects is the same. And it's all about really, this is voluntary money going to profit to help ranchers take better care of nature.
Mhm.
And so, this is voluntary money. Xanterra, for instance, is one of the biggest buyers of carbon in Montana. That's a great buyer for someone who is an organization that's running Yellowstone and the guest services of Yellowstone. And so there's really no profiteering that's happening here. It's truly clean at this point. The question in the future is really, where the carbon credits come from, who's buying them, who's selling them. But at the end of the day, I think it's a really wonderful step in the right direction. And again, another really wonderful way that we as Joe Public can support ranchers and farmers to do better things.
Yeah, that's a good answer. And we could dive into this carbon sequestration deal for probably the next 6 hours. So we won't do that. But thank you for touching on that. Kathy, you've done a great deal of work around wildfire and its increasing significance in the West and in the greater Yellowstone in particular. We know climate change is increasing the frequency and severity of wildfires. What are your concerns related to Big Sky, the greater Yellowstone, about a warming climate and the potential for increasing wildfires?
I was just at a workshop yesterday with fire managers from the US and Australia, and they were talking about good fires and bad fires. And that's just a strange concept to me because it really anthropomorphizes fire. Fire is
Right.
fire. And I think all directions, climate directions say we're going to get more fires in the West. We're going to get more fires in and around Big Sky. You know, warmer climate, drier summers, less fuel moisture, greater vapor pressure deficits, the air is thirstier. Everything points to more fires, and we're not going to get around that. We might be able to have some influences to how intense they burn if we can, you know, do some work in the forest, but you can't treat a whole forest. So we're stuck with wildfires. And what we can do is think about the wildland urban interface, which really, you know, is sort of Big Sky, isn't it? I mean, you're living in the forest and just being very mindful of how we build our houses, how we do our landscaping, and also how we prepare for fire when it occurs. You know, what are the evacuation plans for a place like Big Sky where there's really one major road, you know, up the hill? That sounds a lot like Paradise, California to me, but I'm sure people in Big Sky are thinking about that. You know, we have to be ready for them because they're coming.
Thank you. I'm going to try to jump to a couple of the bigger questions I have because I think we're running out of time. But Conrad, you know, we all like to get outside. You know, you touched on it. The NIMBYism, you know, not in my backyard, closing the door behind you. I didn't grow up in Montana. So we all like to get outside and enjoy recreating in beautiful places like this. We climb, we hike, we ski, we fish. We've also witnessed tremendous growth in Bozeman, as we touched on, as well as Big Sky and the greater Yellowstone, in part due to the recreation opportunities the outdoors here has to offer. And at points, the landscape and the wildlife can suffer. So I want to ask you, in your mind, where does recreation end and conservation begin?
This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Sorry. There's good essays about this subject, and where the Park Service initially came in very conservation minded, and then somewhere in the 60s and 70s it became more recreation, and then with amenities and interpretive centers and places like that. So initially it was like, we're going to preserve this and we're going to keep as much human out of there, and then it became sort of like working with it. And so Xanterra and Delaware North, they work with the national parks. So there's with that, but the conservation of the large species that are part of the Yellowstone ecosystem, it's obviously the right thing to do. We need to make sure that these umbrella species remain healthy and they have connectivity and their populations remain healthy from a DNA standpoint. There's diversity within that, so there's an important part of that. And then with recreation, it's a difficult one because they're like, this is my way of recreating. And if you go out to Revenue, there's climbing there, there's mountain biking, there's dirt biking, but there's also like a shooting range, and it is, and so you have a user conflict, and you know, they'll stop shooting at the climbs. If you show up and you're climbing on there, they'll shoot at something else, but climbing hardware makes for good dive. It's a bizarre way of doing that. And so within all the different, we have our Forest Service land, BLM land, and Park Service land, and then preserve land. Within each of them has a different manner in which that land is in which we as humans can interact with it. And those are externalities. So if you're in a national park, there's no motorized anything, no bicycles, and no power drills, no chainsaws. Everything is done by hand. You go to BLM, it's quite a bit different. Forest Service, again, it's a little bit different on that. So, but probably the best thing is when people go out and recreate is that they abide by the standards that we all kind of come into this. Like, okay, it's BLM land, you can shoot. It's Park Service land, you're not going to shoot. So we all work with that. And then being gracious to your fellow outdoor recreationists, that they're there for the same reason you are there, which is rejuvenation and happiness. And so be like, wow, isn't this a great day? Rather than kind of coming at it with like this posturing or an angry attitude or something like that. It just make sure that initial first contact you have with someone on the trail is optimistic with a smile.
Yeah.
That'd be to look at the two different things there. So
Sure. No, thanks for that. Taylor, you were nodding. I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add there, just in terms of where those two worlds intersect.
Well, all of us that live in Big Sky and Bozeman and Montana, we are the fortunate ones, right? And my personal belief is if we can concentrate our communities and our recreation, and then leave these vast areas of relatively untouched openness all around them, that it'll work out better that way for the migration that we were talking about, for the DNA that we were talking about. So concentrate humans and leave a whole bunch of area that doesn't have that many humans on it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great answer. I like that. Appreciate it. I've got one last one. Lizzie's trying to kick me off here.
Trying to respect everyone's
I'm sorry.
time.
No, and I apologize. Yeah, you guys are already a place to be. Yeah.
It's a good conversation.
I do have a number of more questions, but I wanted to end on this one with you, Malou. Lil Erickson also, when we were chatting, talked about the reciprocity with nature. That we love nature and we receive, and what we receive from being in nature is powerful and it's special. She said we have a responsibility to give back to nature. So I was curious, in your mind, how can regular citizens and visitors to Southwest Montana specifically give back, and how does one know where to begin?
I mean,
Easy one.
I have no idea. I think we have to ask ourselves. I mean, for one, absolutely, we all belong to each other. And I think humans tend to look at communities as human-centric. And everyone, anytime I go and speak, I'm leaving the basin in a way that I feel like I should be speaking for those who don't have a human voice. Because where is their place at our table that we're speaking at? And that includes the mountains and the waters and everything. So I would say, one of the questions I keep asking myself and others that come to Tom Miner is like, what are we offering these places? Because humans come to these places to climb, to shed hunt, to meditate, to be thankful. But what is the offering? And so I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like we as a human species really need to feel into that question more. It is hard.
I'll leave you guys alone. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions from the audience? Anyone curious? I know you're all curious. Yes.
Lizzie and her team have put together a great climate action plan. And to prevent it from getting dust, you guys have experience. What would you suggest that they focus on as a next step going forward?
Well, get the community on board, as many people as you can, and be talking to all groups in the community, from the school kids to the decision makers at the top, I guess. But that's the first step is to just have conversations about this plan and what it can do, because especially as I understand this plan, it's really going to be voluntary, right, to implement these things. So you have to have your coalition of the willing.
Political pressure. Go to Helena. Vote. The Montana Public Service Commission that regulates Northwestern Energy. Lizzie and our community are only going to be able to do so much, and we're going to be able to do a lot, But until we have cleaner electricity and biodiesel and fuels that don't have as much or any carbon in them, we're going to be stuck, and we will not get to zero without those big things that can only happen on a state and national and international basis. Raise some hell.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever we talk about renewables, we're always faced with the dilemma of not having the infrastructure to sustain any kind of renewables in the area. I mean, that's why that's why coal strip phase 3 and 4 are being started back up. It's always political and it's always lack of infrastructure.
I think that's a good point. Is the question why?
Yeah, I mean, we can have wish lists, but we have to have action to put those networks in place. And sometimes, especially when your whole state goes red, it's hard to put those in motion. I feel like we're in a stymie right now.
Yeah, politics can complicate things quite a bit. I guess, do you have a question? Because I can ask a question based on that if you
All
want me
right,
to.
go for it.
All right. Is there a way to find, you talk about, I think everybody here, and I know the SNO Climate Action Plan talks a lot about collaboration and community. Is there a way to come together to whether that is as a community or as a state, find the common ground that the reason why we're all here, whether we've been born here or whether we've moved here, we're all here for the same reasons. Is there a way to bridge that gap and find a common ground to move forward? I guess, I don't know if anyone wants to field that one.
The last governor developed a climate solutions plan, and with a broad and diverse committee of people from across the state. But the number one recommendation was for a climate solutions network, something that ideally the state would fund, but that would connect communities like Big Sky to other small communities that are trying to do similar things, or to healthcare professionals working in one part of the state with healthcare professionals in another part. We need that network. We need that state level ability to communicate with each other so we can create these coalitions at a broader level than just at a community. I think it's going to have to come from philanthropic support because it's not going to come from the state level. But I think that's a number one need for addressing this kind of issue, where everything is just balkanized in the way it's done in Montana. Communities do this and that, but they don't work together.
Yeah.
Is there a place for universities in that?
Yeah,
system?
I mean, I wish.
Yeah, easier said. I don't know if anyone else has it.
I would add that I think we need more spaces, more brave spaces where people can break open and have paradigm shifts. When we think about, when you said a red state, we have to provide these spaces where people can feel deeply together as a community. The living earth needs us all to be in wonder and awe together. And it's the together piece, the network, the togetherness that's so important. And that's when real shift happens in people. And that's what we really need.
I admire your Gandhi approach, and Malcolm X does it a different way. And if we can do it Gandhi, good on us. Yeah.
Communication.
Admire the way you're doing this.
Thanks.
Oh, that's a great answer. Any other questions? Anyone need to use the restroom? Sorry. Go ahead.
I used to be so anti-tourist, so I'd write up the list. I wouldn't say a word to anybody. And lately, I'm just talking, especially on a sunny day. everybody wants to talk. Where are you from? Where else did you used to ski? Is this your first time in Big Sky? And most of the answers are first time here, used to ski in Colorado, now I'm skiing here. What is your experience? This is incredible. What is your favorite mountain? I think this is now. So the cat's out of the bag. Like, I mean, there's more and more and more people showing up here. It's hard to get here, but they've managed to make it here. And Taylor, I love the way you're making employee housing a priority. One less car driving down the road. You know, housing someone in the community is a good thing. But we're pretty much, this is not, Big Sky is not sustainable. When you include Yellowstone Club, Spanish Peaks, and what they're doing in Moonlight is huge. It is not sustainable. We have one road. And people are living as far away as Three Forks, even Butte. They commute from Butte to get to Big Sky. And it's like, it's not sustainable. If one bridge went out, if the Lava Lake Bridge went out, where would we be? Like, we look at, and there's, I don't know, is there a solution? Is there anything we can do? Because it doesn't appear to be. And it still we just grow and grow and grow. And there's this super steep slope side. Oh, we're going to put condos on there. It's like, really? Where are we going with this? Same thing with Bozeman, Conrad. You've seen it. It's insane. It's going to go all the way to the tobacco roots. Denver, Salt Lake City could fit in the Gallatin Valley. Boom. Where are we going with this?
It's a whole
Great
lot.
question.
A lot of question there. And
I don't even know if there's a question.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
It's like, where are we going with
It
this?
is the question.
Well, and I think that's really,
And when does the growth stop? When do we say no more?
yeah.
And that's shutting the door behind you, which none of us want to do because we arrived here at one point in time. We didn't shut the door. We actually invited friends. Hey, you should come move here. Bozeman's great in 1992. You should come move here.
Yeah.
You're setting up that's the question that people have been asking that question since I came in 1981, right? Everybody kind of wants it to lock in like it was when they found it. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying that's good. That's just what a lot of people think. But that's a great question. I'm really glad you put it out to all of us into this room. And I think it's up to all of us in this room and a lot of other people in this town to answer your question and find an elegant answer, whatever it is.
I think it really requires working together. That's the most important piece.
More Gandhi, less Malcolm X.
You got it. On
It's a
that note,
hybrid. A hybrid.
you might go to the next one.
All right. Thank you.
Malou, nice. Let's find a way to talk. I'd like to learn more about you guys.
We got one more film and then we're gonna close, guys.
Oh, we got another film?
Yep, one more film and then we're gonna
Hi, I'm Jeremy Jones. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm a climate activist because I love winter.
And I know I'm not perfect.
Neither are you.
I know I'm not perfect, but I'm a climate advocate because I feel it's my duty to protect my home.
And I want to help care for this place for generations to come. We all deserve to celebrate the places we love.
Climate change is an existential threat
to life on Earth.
It's one of the most important issues of our day.
And I believe I can make a difference.
Because I believe in standing up for what you love. The mountains give me purpose, and I want to return the favor by making my purpose protecting them.
But I'm a climate advocate because I believe in imperfect activism. I love the places we play because I believe in keeping the alpine alpine.
Because the trees can't speak for themselves.
Life on this planet is in jeopardy.
And that deserves as much respect and support as I can give.
Because there's literally no reason not to be.
Yeah, smile. Ready?
Because I want the mountains and the outdoors to put smiles on people's faces and joy in their hearts for years to come. Because I can't think of anything better than spending my entire day outdoors.
A healthy planet is a human right.
The future of our planet is uncertain.
But I'm a climate activist because it's not all about me.
The land needs someone to speak up for it, and I'm here to do it. Because I love this earth and I want to preserve it for future generations.
I care about the places we ski, and you should too.
The places we love to play are in danger, and they're the most important thing we have in this society.
But I'm a climate advocate
Because we can't wait any longer.
But I'm a climate advocate because one day I want to share the mountains, the snow, and everything that's made me the person I am today with my future kids.
Now, as a parent, I see my kids having stress about an uncertain future, and I need to advocate for them and for their future.
But I'm a climate advocate because my imperfection is driven by an imperfect system.
Because I believe business has a responsibility to act.
We only have one planet. My only other option is to sit back and watch the world burn.
An imperfect advocate is still better than being a perfect bystander.
We need to save the planet.
Because if not us, then you.
All right. I promise I'll keep it brief because I know we've gone a little over time. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us. I'd really like to say a huge thank you to all 5 of you. You did an amazing job. Great discussion. Couldn't be more appreciative of the diverse perspectives you brought to this panel. Something I wanted to bring to Big Sky was to create a space where we could talk about how every single one of you, no matter where you work or where you live or what you do, you can be a part of this solution. So the last film reminds me a little bit of a quote that Lori taught me. Hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up, implying that we need to get to work if hope is to continue. So let's talk for a moment about rolling up our sleeves, and then I'll be real quick about talking about hope. Our local economy relies heavily on the health of our environment, including a beautiful landscape, thriving wildlife, and recreational opportunities. To sustain the local economy and protect the community, it is critical to adapt to the changing climate that our panel spoke about. There are many who made this plan possible. I'd like to say thank you to all 3 community foundations: Yellowstone Club Community Foundation, Moonlight Community Foundation, Spanish Peaks Community Foundation, Resort Tax Board, or BizRad as some of you may know them, and the Rochelle Foundation, in addition to our supporting stewards. A really, really important thanks to our CAP working groups that developed and agreed upon strategies applicable in Big Sky. I know some of you are here tonight, and I couldn't be more grateful for all the effort you put in. It would literally not exist without your time volunteered, expertise shared, and dynamic discussion. I personally would like to thank my snowboard. Yes, my board is also called the snowboard. And we have a snow cap and a snowboard now, so we're doing good with these. They have been super supportive and just really helpful throughout this entire process. If you didn't know me before, I used to cook. This is a whole new realm for me, so here we are. So I really want to make sure, as we're all here tonight, and why we invited you here tonight, is to honor the inputs that these folks put in by being part of the solution output. None of this would come to fruition without community participation going forward. One reason to foster enthusiasm is that we cannot accomplish this work on our own. We need you or folks you know to lend their time, energy, and expertise to implement this plan in an attainable way over time. This is not a one and done path, you guys. This is a long haul. What does implementation look like, you may ask? SNO has already begun, and you're probably familiar, or maybe not, with some of these projects. My favorite that I like to talk about is our waste composition assessment. Some of you may have heard me reference it as data-driven dumpster diving. I can see Sarah smiling up there about this. Yeah, I literally go around and pick up trash around Big Sky, and we go ahead and sort through it to understand how we can better divert trash from our landfill. There will be a report coming out this summer. I hope you guys look for it. It's been a really fun and hysterical experience. I think Patty Howard is still here. She's with Gallatin County Solid Waste. She's been super helpful. We are also educating people about recycling and composting, specifically at zero waste events such as the Farmers Market and Music in the Mountains. We are so grateful for our strong sense of community and the partnerships that stem from it. Big Sky One Less Car, some of you may have heard of this, is our carpool incentive in collaboration with Go Gallatin. It has been a fun initiative to scratch the surface of the traffic we're all experiencing and all talking about in this canyon. How many of you got stuck on the way here tonight in something a lot slower than you anticipated? For instance, in 2019, just as a snapshot, almost 90 million miles in a vehicle were traveled in the canyon and in Big Sky. That has only increased, and that's more than the distance from Earth to Mars. Let that sink in. This is just the beginning. These projects and programs were quickly attainable because we have strong partners ready to participate. What comes next will require participation across the community and collective collaborative action. If you have ideas, we are all ears. If you have expertise to lend, we would love to engage with you. Watch for the opportunity to get involved with implementation groups later this year. The more who are actively a part of it, the greater our community success on this path. Now, back to the hope piece. I've rolled my sleeves up for long enough. In my first few months working with Big Sky SNO, I sat at a table with community organizations discussing Big Sky's sustainable future. We assessed challenges from transportation to energy to water use. The meeting was closed with an ask for a one-word takeaway. My word was daunted. Amy, who was sitting next to me, was hopeful. Daily, I experienced this feeling of hopeful that we're making a difference and daunted that we're just not doing enough. They're kind of like a bit of an energy bar of tension, fueling me up our little trail to net zero 2050. But at this moment tonight, with all of you here and with the insight from you folks, I am hopeful. So let's roll up our sleeves and start climbing. Thank you.